Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we can start now.
So go ahead.
Okay. Om Jnana Timirasya Jnana Ganashalakaya Chakshuromalitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuktapada Kamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahogana Ragunastam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahogana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Sri Tatmane Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tetariti Namini Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirveste Sasuyavadi Pasacha Desatarini Panchakalpatarvyascha kripasindubhya evacha Patitanam pavinebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayana Namaskritya Narachava Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat Nashtapraya Sabhadresu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So everyone is welcome to today's session. Last week, we couldn't do much. We ended up on text 12, and then we are supposed to begin from 13 today. So, as usual, we would read the translations of each verse, and then I've captured some amount of the purport in the slide just to give us an idea of what is happening in a particular verse. Then we would have some little discussion and we move on. But before we begin with today's discussion, generally, I always like us to connect with the previous discussion. So I would like to ask students to just give us 1 point or so what stuck in their minds from last week's discussion. Is there anything that's stuck in your mind? Is there something you can remember strongly in your mind? What we discussed last Sunday? That will help us connect to what we discussed last week. And then we can proceed with today's discussion. So is there anything that's stuck in your mind that you can share with us in this class? So Madhavan Prabhu. Can you tell us something? that you remembered from the last class on this chapter that we discussed? I think you're, what is happening? I'm not hearing your voice. Is it that you're muted or unmuted? Something is happening. We are not hearing each other.
No, we can hear you clearly. I think Madhuvan is muted, so that's why.
Okay.
Madhuvan Prabhu, you have been asked a question. On mute and answer.
I said, what's stuck in your mind from the last discussion on this chapter?
Are you finding difficulty to unmute, Madhuvan Prabhu? Let me initiate from here for you. You should see a pop-up on your screen now. Maybe that will help you. I guess it's having some challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It is gadgets. Probably it's hanging or something. Jyoti Sharu probably wants to step in.
Okay, you can say something. Anybody can say something. I'll just try to initiate the discussion.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Maharaj, last week we discussed in one verse like Maitreya Muni and Vidura. There was some conversation between them, and they were discussing about the pastimes of the Lord, and like they feel like they are bathing in the water of Ganga.
Okay.
Like they are purifying themselves.
Yep.
And they are free from all sinful reactions. So that's how they were feeling.
Yeah. Yes, that is hearing about the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord is as good as bathing in the waters of the Ganges.
Yes.
So in other words, Maitreya Muni and Vidur, they are saying that there is no difference between Krishna's pastimes and the water that emanates from the lotus feet of the Lord. And so, in the words of Krishnadas Kaviraj, Krishna Nam, Krishna Gun, Krishna Lila Vrinda, Krishnera Swarupa Sama, Sarva Chit Ananda. That Krishna's name, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's form, everything concerning Krishna is spiritual and blissful. Sarva Chit Ananda. So that is the conclusion of these wonderful souls, like Maitreya Muni and Vidur. So thank you for that. Any other comment? Any other thing that we can remember from the last discussion?
I think we had a group discussion on whether we should follow the instructions to go to the holy places or we should not go to the holy places.
Yep.
And we concluded the answer by saying that we should go to the holy places, but in the association of those who are devotees.
That's right. Yeah, visiting holy places will only be beneficial if it is done in the association of senior Vaishnavas, especially those who reside in those holy places. They are very much acquainted with the pastimes of those holy places. And if you associate with them, then you can actually visit those holy places with your mind and your heart. just seeing the holy places with our eyes is not sufficient. We have to visit the holy places with our minds and with our hearts. And that is why it is important to do that in the company of advanced Vaishnavas who are very conversant with the pastimes of these holy places. So therefore, Narottam Das Thakur is simply advising that if it is just a matter of sightseeing, and we are going to holy places for sightseeing, then there is no need. But if we are going to drink the nectar, and we are going to dive deep into the pastimes of Krishna's activities in those holy places, then it is worth going. Yeah, I also think we discussed the manus.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so important. The manus.
The 14 manus.
The 14 manus. Lord Brahma's day is said to be at noon. So 7 of the manus have already reigned, and we are expecting the next 7. We are in the first 7th Manu, which is Vaivasatra Manu. He is reigning right now. And then after his time is over, then the next 7 Manus will also come one after another. And then we also mentioned that each Manu, they're like governors of the universe. So each Manu comes along with a particular person who becomes Indra, and he comes along with a particular incarnation of the Lord. And of course, even the different demigods, different groups of demigods, they also come with different Manus. So the universe is a very complex place. And then, so it has been managed by different Manus with different sages, different local palas, governors, and that is how the universe is running. So, so these are the points that were, some of the points that were discussed last week. And so we are going to move forward with our discussion. Also, I wanted to find out with the other teachers, how do they facilitate their classes? Do they read a number of verses together and then make commentary, or they go verse by verse as I'm doing now? Because I'm trying to see what is the best way that can help us move a little bit faster. So how did the other teachers conduct their facilitation?
The model for most of the teachers is to read the verse, read some part of the purports, make commentaries, ask questions. So they read the text, sometimes the Sanskrit and the text in English. Then they read some part of the purport that has some significant points to be elaborated upon. Okay. So I'm not doing something different. Yes. I have a PowerPoint. I pick the purport. So we don't just go to the purport. I've already picked some part and put it on a slide. So we look at that, and then we have some discussion. So in that way, my pace, I also want to know whether my pace is too slow, medium, or too fast. It's also important. I will allow the other students to comment. Yeah, is my pace okay, or is it too slow, or is it too fast?
Hare Krishna.
And Krishna, Prabhu.
Please, I'm so sorry. Initially, I had a problem with my
your
audio. Yes, but I'm through now.
Okay, good.
So, well, yes, sir. So we are just starting. So assessing you is a bit difficult or not precise enough.
Okay, maybe today, tomorrow, you will see. Then you can give a better assessment. But the intention is to help the students understand. So if
yes, sir.
our style
Then
is,
at least, sir. Yes, sir. I think under observation, we used to record our programs.
yeah,
And I noticed that we have not done any recording because it helps us when we play back. And,
then you can listen.
you know,
Okay.
yes.
We're on live YouTube. The recording is there. I'm having some technical issues with my system, so I just actually reformatted the system. So, but I'll share the link with you on the group chat later. So I'm resetting my system. That's why you see that the link, but we'll be recording every class.
Okay, I think that's our culture. That's our culture in BACE, that we record the lecture and the discussions. So as to go back.
It's not just being recorded, it's on live YouTube.
Okay, okay. All right, so I think it's too early to make assessment, as Madhavan Prabhu said. So let's move ahead and then maybe we can make some assessment. So beginning with text 13, normally the first verse, I read the first verse, the sloka, and then the verse. Then the rest of the verses, in order to make the move, to make the facilitation a bit faster, we leave out the Sanskrit. Of course, we can choose some slokas which are of relevance, maybe the key verses, and then we can read those verses, both English and Sanskrit, just to keep us abreast with the verse. So beginning with 13, it says, Raja Pradhanam Mahatas Trilingo Daiva Choditat Jata Sarsa Jabu Tadir Viyat Adini Panchasaha. The translation is, as impelled by the destiny of the jiva, the false ego, which is of three kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of Rajas predominates. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of 5 principles. So on the slide, it says the primordial matter, or prakriti, material nature, consisting of the 3 modes, generates 4 groups of 5. The first group is called elementary and consists of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The second group of 5 is called the tanmatra, referring to the subtle elements, sense objects, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The third group is the 5 sense organs for acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The fourth group is the 5 working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Some say there are 5 groups of 5, and the 5th group is the 5 deities who control these divisions. So this is described as sarga. Sarga means the primary creation. We discussed 2 types of creations: sarga, visharga. Sarga means the creation of Mahavishnu, and visharga means the creation of Brahma. So without the creation of Mahavishnu, there cannot be a creation of Brahma, because Mahavishnu provides the ingredients for Brahma to create the universe and the bodies of the living entities. So here it is said that the primordial matter, or prakriti, material nature, consisting of the 3 modes, generates the 4 of the 5. In other words, the modes of nature, they are the building blocks of everything we see in this universe. Everything we see in this universe is as a result of the combinations of the 3 modes of material nature. It is said that the false ego, ahankar, combines with the 3 modes of nature, and then it produces the ingredients for Brahma's creation. So when the false ego combines with the mode of goodness, the mind and the devatas are created. When the false ego combines with passion, mode of passion, intelligence, and the senses are created. When the false ego combines with the mode of ignorance, then the gross elements, water, earth, water, fire, air, ether, are created. So in this way, these groups, as mentioned in this purport, they all come from the combination of the modes of nature and the false ego. So everything we see in this universe is coming from the combination of ahankar and triguna, the 3 modes of material nature. And that is why it is really difficult to overcome Maya, because our bodies, our minds, our senses, material objects, everything we see is a product of the false ego and the modes of nature. So for someone to actually transcend this false ego and the modes of nature, he has to take full shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. He has to take full shelter of the process of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it's very difficult to break through. And therefore, Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita, Mama Maya Durachaya, Daivihi Sagunamayi, Mama Maya Durachaya. That to overcome this material energy is not an easy job. But then he also says, Maya mite tarantite. Maya mite tarantite. Those who surrender unto me, they can easily overcome. So even though this material energy comprising of the 3 modes of nature and the false ego is most difficult to deal with, but the secret, the answer is full surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Then one can easily overcome this ego and the modes of nature. So, but we have to understand that these groups, the 5 groups, the first group is the elementary elements comprising of air, water, fire, air, and ether. That's the first group. The second group is the sense objects of sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The third group is the 5 sense organs for acquiring knowledge, which is ears, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The fourth group is the working senses, which is the speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Then the last group, which is the fifth group, are the devatas, the demigods that control these various divisions. So these are the 5 groups which are described as the Pancha Saha or Pancha Pancha, sometimes like that. So any comment, any question? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next verse. Text 14 has no purpose. I'll just read that. It says, separately unable to produce the material universe, they combine with the help of the energy of the Supreme Lord and were able to produce a shining egg. So when these elements combine, they needed energy to move ahead. As the science say, for every action, there must be some energy. If there is no energy just to bring about the reaction will not take place. So similarly, even in the combination of these elements, these primordial elements of a false ego and the most of material nature, they still need the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to begin to act. And that is why it is said that the glance of Mahavishnu is very important. That glance of Mahavishnu is the activating factor in this universal creation. Without the glance of Mahavishnu, it is not possible for these ahankar and the most of material nature to combine. So the Lord's energy is required, and therefore Mahavishnu, he glances at the ingredients. And then also it is said here, even when the Lord has glanced over them, they combine to form a shining egg. The seeds of the universes comes in the form of a shining egg. When all of these elements have combined, false ego combining with the various modes of nature, with the energy from the Supreme Lord, these elements are produced, and then they form the universe, the material for the universe, and that comes off as a shining egg. And these shining eggs, they float on the causal ocean, as we shall see in the next verse. The next verse, which is verse 15, says that for over 1,000 years, the shining egg lay on the waters of the causal ocean in a lifeless state. Then the Lord entered it as Garbhodakashai Vishnu. So even though the Lord injected his energy into these elements for their manifestation, for the reaction to produce these elements, these 5 groups of elements, and that went into each universe as the building blocks of each universe, there was still a need for the Lord to expand himself into each of the universes. So in this verse 15, it is said that for thousands of years, the shining egg lay on the waters of the causal ocean in a lifeless state. There was no life in them. Then the Lord entered it as Garbhodakashai Vishnu. So Mahavishnu, after energizing this primordial element to create the 5 groups of elements which will form the blocks for creating the planets and the living entities and so on, the bodies of the living entities and so on, they were put in each universe, but they will still remain lifeless. They could not produce anything of their own. So therefore, Mahavishnu now expanded himself into Garbhodakashai Vishnu and entered in each of the universes. So that is what this verse is telling us. Without Mahavishnu expanding himself to enter each universe, creation is not possible. Material creation is not possible. Unlike our scientific world, who claim that there was nothing in the beginning, and out of that nothingness, there was a universal soup. And from that universal soup, microorganisms were created. This is a fairy tale because there is no experience in this world whereby something happens out of the thin air. There is no experience. Even the scientists themselves, they have no experience of such a thing, that something has happened out of thin air. No creator, no brain, no manufacturer. The building just emerges from the air and stands there. The machine just emerges from the thin air and stands there. The airplane just emerges from the thin air and flies there. There is no such experience. All our experience we've had so far is that everything has a creator. Everything has a manufacturer. Everything has a source. So this universe has a source. And that source is Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu provided the ingredients, and then he expanded himself into Garbhodakashai Vishnu and entered each universe to bring about life. Without the Lord, there cannot be any life. So the Lord has entered the universe, and then let's see what text 16 tells us. From the navel of the personality of Godhead, Garbhodakashai Vishnu sprouted a lotus flower, effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. This lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls. And the first living entity who came out of the lotus flower was the omnipotent Brahma. So I think the verse is important. Tasyanabe abut patmam sahasrat karo diditi sarva jivani kayoko yatra swayam abut swarat. So it's a very nice verse, a very important verse, because this verse actually defeats the scientific theory. The hypothesis of the scientists is defeated by this verse, because this verse gives us a clue of how the universe came about. So here, it says, from the navel of the personality of Godhead, Garbhodakashai Vishnu sprouted a lotus flower, effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. This lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls. And the first living entity who came out of the lotus flower was the omnipotent Brahma. So the last part of the verse says, Yatra Swayam Abut Shwarat. Shwarat means independent. So Brahma is independent. Unlike us living entities, we are very dependent. But Brahma, because he's such a great soul, that's why he came first. That's why he appeared first. Because he has to use his ingenuity, his intelligence, his abilities to do many things on behalf of all the living entities. So therefore, he's described here as Swarat. Only Krishna is described as Swarat. Krishna is completely independent. Krishna does not depend on anyone. But because Brahma represents the Supreme Lord in the universe, he's the first living being in the universe, so he must have some of the qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead must empower him with some of his qualities to enable him create, to enable him organize the universe. So the verse, the purport, which is a slide we can see, the lotus as effulgent as the glare of 1,000 suns. It appears from this verse that the conditioned souls who rested within the body of the personality of Godhead after the dissolution of the last creation came out in the sum total form of the lotus. This is called Hiranyangarbha. The first living entity to come out was Lord Brahma, who is independently able to create the rest of the manifested universe. The lotus described here as effulgent as a glare of 1,000 suns. This indicates that the living entities, as parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also of the same quality, since the Lord also diffuses his bodily glare, known as Brahmajyoti. So this verse has a lot of things to discuss, many things. First, from the navel of the Lord, Nama Pankaja Naabaya, Nama Pankaja Maline, Nama Pankaja Nitraya, Namaste Pankaja Graye. The Lord's lotus navel is described. The Lord has a beautiful stomach with a very beautiful navel. Nama Pankaja Naabaya. Naabaya means a navel. So the Lord has such a beautiful navel. He has a beautiful belly, a beautiful navel. And from that beautiful navel, the lotus flowers sprouted. And so that is the origin. From that beautiful navel of Garbha Dakashai Vishnu is the birthplace of Lord Brahma, is the birthplace of the lotus flower, is the birthplace of all living entities. And living entities have no separate existence. We all come from the Lord. And this lotus flower represents the totality of all the living entities in the universe. And that is why it is mentioned here, that is as shining, as glare as 1,000 suns. And because it says the lotus is described here as effulgent, as the glare of 1,000 suns. And so Prabhupada writes, this indicates that the living entities, as parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also of the same quality, since the Lord also diffuses his bodily glare, known as Brahmajyoti. So because each and every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, we also have that inherent quality of the Lord of effulgence. Mama, that is the verse where Krishna is saying, Mama ivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. That a living entity is eternally part and parcel of him. So if the Lord has that great effulgence, that is the light of the spiritual world. The effulgence of the Lord provides light in the spiritual world. And it is said that the reflection of that is what the sun the sun, that empowers the sun to provide light in this universe. Without that Brahma Jyoti light, there cannot be light anywhere. It is that Brahma Jyoti light that is reflected on the sun, and the sun also reflects that in the universe and thereby provide light. And it's also mentioned that moonlight is also a reflection of the sun's light. So the original light is coming from Krishna. And because the living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, he is also as effulgent as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here, the glory of the living entity is described, because the living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, coming from Krishna. The living entity is also very effulgent. And so when you put all these conditioned souls together, which comes out as a lotus flower, then the lotus flower is very, very effulgent. So effulgent that is compared to the glare of 1,000 suns. Now, it is also mentioned here the lotus flower is called the Hiranyangarbha. Hiranyangarbha, the lotus flower, which is the sum total of all the conditioned souls from the dissolution of the last creation, is also important. Of course, sometimes Brahma is also called Hiranyangarbha because it's the first being to be born from the lotus flower. So sometimes Brahma is also addressed as Hiranyangarbha. But the lotus flower is particularly called Hiranyangarbha because it's the totality of all the conditioned souls that remained in the universe at the time of the universal dissolution. So definitely before the universe comes to a close, those souls that are taken to the process of Krishna consciousness, they will escape. They will get out of this universe before the next dissolution. But those who are not conscious of the fact that this universe has a beginning and end, those who are not conscious of the living entity's real position, Jivera Swarupa Haya Krishna Nityadas, that we are eternally Krishna Kinkara, we are Krishna's servants. If we don't have that knowledge, then we'll remain in this universe until we meet the next dissolution. And if we meet the next dissolution without knowledge, then we have to again enter into the belly of Mahavishnu, and Mahavishnu will inject us into the belly of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Garbhodakshaya Vishnu will bring us out in the form of the lotus flower. So, and that lotus flower is called Hiranyangarbha. So, any comments, any questions before we move on to the next verse?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So, when we talk of living entities, then we should also talk of conditioned souls.
Yeah.
I think there are differences there because
That's true.
I think some living entities,
yeah.
Because
we are three categories of living entities. We have the Nitya Siddhas. They remain in the spiritual world forever. They don't come out. They have no idea of material experience. It's not like us who are experiencing the material world and we have forgotten the spiritual world. For them, they have no experience of Maya. Those are Nitya Siddhas. Then we have the Nitya Baddhas. The Nitya Baddhas are those who are in the material world, and they have forgotten the spiritual world. Just as the Nitya Siddhas have forgotten, they don't have anything to do with the material world. They have no idea of material existence. They have no idea. So we, the Nitya Baddhas, have no idea of spiritual existence. We only are aware of the material world, finish. And so our whole concern is matter. But then there are a group of living entities in between the two. They are called Nitya Mokshas or Moksha Baddhas sometimes. Moksha Baddhas. Moksha Baddha means one who is on the path of liberation. For like all of us, we are in that category of Moksha Baddhas. We are Nitya Baddhas, but now we are treading the path of liberation. We are treading the path of devotional service. And if we remain on this path, we will join the Nitya Siddhas. So therefore, it is said that there are three groups of living entities: Nitya Siddhas, Nitya Baddhas, and Moksha Baddhas. So when we are talking about this, lotus flower is specifically dealing with the living entities that are Nitya Baddhas, the eternally conditioned souls. And that is why they are coming out in the form of a lotus. Those who are Nitya Moksha Baddhas, they are liberated. They did not have to enter the belly of Mahavishnu again. They have gone back to the Godhead. But those who did not make any effort, those who were in complete ignorance, they have to go back into Mahavishnu's belly at the end of the universe, at the dissolution of the universe. And so they are Nitya Baddhas. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
All right, so we can move on to text 17. Somebody can read the translation of 17 and then the slide.
Translation.
Yeah.
When that supreme personality of Godhead, who is lying on the Garbhokasha ocean, entered the heart of Brahma, Brahma brought his intelligence to bear, and with intelligence invoked, he began to create the universe as it was before.
Okay, so slide.
So the purpose. Okay, the slide. Okay. The Lord, as the super soul within Brahma, gave him the intelligence to create. The creative power, therefore, of every living entity is not his own. It is by the grace of the Lord that one can create. There are many scientists and great workers in this material world who have wonderful creative force, but they act and create only according to the direction of the Supreme Lord. The scientist may create many wonderful inventions by the direction of the Lord, but it's not possible for him to overcome the stringent laws of material nature by his intelligence.
Yeah, thank you. So here, Brahma has been created. Brahma has emerged from the lotus flower. Is the first living being that comes out of the lotus flower. And Brahma is described as Abhut Swarat. He is almost independent because he has to independently create with the empowerment from the Supreme Lord. He has to use his intelligence to create the contents of the universe. So, but that creation is inspired by the Lord. So here he said that when that Supreme Personality of God, who is lying on the Garbha ocean, entered the heart of Brahma, Brahma brought his intelligence to bear. So in the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we come across the statement, Tene Brahma Hirdaya Adi Kavaye, that Brahma received his education from the Supreme Lord himself. Brahma was the first student of Vedic literature because he was the only person in the universe. So the Lord has to become his teacher. The Lord has to enter Brahma's heart and reveal the creation, reveal knowledge of the creation, reveal everything to Brahma. How the creation in the previous life was, in the previous universe was done. So that is what this verse is saying, that Brahma brought his intelligence to bear, and with the intelligence invoked, he began to create the universe as it was before. So nobody can create anything in this world without the inspiration coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whatever creative power that any living entity may have, it has to be understood that it is coming from the Supreme Creator, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the great scientific inventions, is the Lord who inspired them. And that is why we see great scientists like Isaac Newton, like Einstein, and many other distinguished scientists. They recognized the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They accept that without some empowerment, without some inspiration, without some internal guidance, it was not possible for them to observe nature, for them to come up with principles, with laws, universal laws that existed before they were born. So it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the Super Soul, as the Chaita Guru. He inspires the living entity and empowers him with his creative potency. And only then can anyone create. So, as Krishna confirms in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvashya Chaham Hiridesani Vishto, Matas Smriti Gyanam Apunam Cha. The Lord is in the heart of all living entities, and he provides the remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So in this situation, we can see how the Lord helped Brahma by giving him that remembrance of how to create. And Brahma did his service very wonderfully. So we must accept the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We must accept that nothing can happen without the Lord's empowerment. We must accept that the Lord is completely independent, but a living entity is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And sometimes I challenge scientists that if they say they don't depend on God, then why don't they create their own brain? The scientist's brain, they did not create it. Somebody created it. I've not heard of any scientist that have created his own brain. Of course, now they have this AI, artificial intelligence, but it has no brain. It has no brain. It's just acting based on programming. It has been programmed. But the human being is completely independent. He thinks, he acts, he does things on his own, not something that is programmed. And then also, if the scientists were so great, then why can't they stop that? No scientists have been able to stop that. Though they keep promising us, they keep giving us post-dated checks that one day they will stop that, but we have not seen. So these are the things that point to the scientists that they are dependent on a higher authority. The higher authority provides the brain for them, and the higher authority decides when they are going to leave this world, and that they have no authority over. So they must acknowledge the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Prabhupada is writing here, he said, a scientist may create many wonderful inventions by the direction of the Lord, but it's not possible for him to overcome the stringent laws of material nature by his intelligence, which we can all ascertain, we all witness it. Even the greatest scientists like Einstein, when it was time for him to die, he could not replicate his life. He could not create another life. And then Einstein continued to live. What God gave him when he came to an end, that was the end. Okay? So no one can overcome the stringent laws of material nature by our intelligence, because that intelligence is given to us by God. He has a supreme intelligence, and he gave us some little intelligence. So what the Lord sets in place, we have to follow. And that is where surrender is important. We need to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mayami tam tarantite, as Krishna says, those who surrender unto me, they can overcome this very, very powerful material energy. So surrender is very important. We have to move on to the text 18, unless there's a question. Somebody can read 18.
Maharaj, can I read?
Yes, go ahead.
Translation. First of all, Brahma created from his shadow the covering of ignorance of the conditioned soul. They are 5 in number and are called Tamishra, Andha Tamishra, Tamas, Moha, and Mahamoha.
Okay, so on the slide, they are defined. The definitions of these are given in the slide. Can you read the slide?
Yes. The 5 material coverings, Tamishra, that's forgetfulness of our constitutional position due to anger or envy and trying to be equal enjoyer with the Lord. Andha Tamishra, considering death to be the ultimate. Tamas, not knowing anything about the spirit soul. Moha, illusion of the bodily concept of life caused by attachment to sex life and its byproducts. Sectarian religion and societies fight with one another. Mahamoha. Maharaj, can we slide it a bit up?
Okay.
Mahamoha.
Sorry. It's not showing, eh?
Something. Please go your something. Your screen.
Mahamoha, to be mad after material enjoyment, characteristic of the age of Kali. Okay. Yeah, so I see. So these are the first creation of Brahma. Tamisra under Tamisra, Tamas Moha, Mahamoha. Tamisra means forgetfulness of our constitutional position. Under Tamisra means considering death the ultimate end. Tamas means completely covered by matter, no idea of the soul. Moha means great illusion. We become attracted to the illusory body and its expansions. And then Mahamoha means madness after material pleasure. So Brahma created these 5 coverings because the living entities that have remained during the dissolution of the previous creation they have a desire to enjoy material nature. They have a desire to enjoy away from Krishna. So Brahma has to facilitate that. In order to facilitate that, he must dress them up in a way that they will not even think about the Supreme Lord. They will just be so absorbed in material existence. And that is what we see in this world. Everyone is so absorbed in material existence. We are so absorbed with this body. We are so absorbed with the physical environment. We have forgotten everything about spiritual life. So this is caused by these 5 coverings that serve as a dress for the living entity. Text 19 says, out of disgust, Brahma threw off the body of ignorance, and taking this opportunity, the yakshas and the rakshasas sprang for possession of the body, which continues to exist in the form of night. Night is a source of hunger and thirst. So I think from this moment, we have to look at the creation of Brahma, because from 20, it says, overpowered by hunger and thirst, they ran to devour Brahma from all sides and cried, spare him not, eat him up. That is 20. It says in the purport that the representatives of the yakshas and rakshasas still exist in some countries of the world. It is understood that such uncivilized men take pleasure in killing their own grandfathers and having a love feast by roasting their bodies. So this is a list of Brahma's creation. It's a list of Brahma's creation. From the body of ignorance, after Brahma had created the 5 coverings, 5 gross coverings to serve as a dress for the pure soul, to serve as a dress of the living entity. Brahma himself was not feeling comfortable with that body, so he cast it off. And when he threw it off, the yakshas and the rakshasas, they took advantage. They seized it. Then the next thing is that they were feeling very hungry, as we can see in text 20. So they were overpowered by hunger and thirst, and they wanted to eat Brahma. They wanted to devour Brahma. So from all sides, the yakshas and the rakshasas, they run after Brahma. The yaksha says, spare him not. And the rakshasas say, eat him up. So Brahma was in a very difficult situation. That these living beings he just created, they want to devour him. They want to eat him up. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport that the representatives of these yakshas and rakshasas still exist in some countries of the world. And they take pleasure in killing their own grandfathers and holding a love feast by roasting their bodies. I think somewhere Prabhupada mentions whether Kenya or Uganda. He mentioned one of his purports. He mentions one East African country where they celebrate the new year by killing an old man and roasting him in a fire and eating him up. So Prabhupada said these are descendants of Rakshasas. and yakshas. So those who eat human beings, those who take pleasure in eating human flesh, we have to understand that they are descendants of the yakshas and the rakshasas, because only the yakshas and the rakshasas, they eat human flesh. Then I think when we go to the next verse, Brahma creates the demons from his buttocks. So let's see the next verse. Okay, let me just go through the list, then we'll go back to the verses. So from the buttocks, the demons were created. From his impure body, the twilight, mistaken for a beautiful damsel. Body of loveliness, the Gandharvas and Apsaras were created. From the moonlight, Vishwavasu and others were created. From Brahma's sloth, ghosts and fiends were created. From his sleep and drooling, ghosts and hobgoblins were created. From his invisible form, the Sadyas and the Pittas were created. From his ability to be hidden from vision, Antardana, Siddhas, and Vidyaharas were created. From his reflection, a shadowy form, King Purushas and Kinnaras were created. From his hair on his body, snakes were created. From his mind, Manu was created. From body strengthened by penance, adoration, mental concentration, the sages, his beloved sons, were created. So these are the different creations of Brahma, which we shall be encountering as we move ahead with this chapter. So going back to text 21. Somebody can read 21.
Reads,
Yeah.
Brahma, the head of the demigods, full of anxiety, asks them, do not eat me, but protect me. You are born from me, and have become my sons. Therefore, you are yakshas and rakshasas.
Slide.
The birth of yakshas and rakshasas. The demons who were from the body of Brahma were called yakshas and rakshasas, because some of them cried that Brahma should be eaten, and the others cried that it should not be protected. The ones who said that it should be eaten were called yakshas, and the ones who said that it should not be protected became rakshasas, man-eaters. Bhagavatam 3:20-21 purport.
Okay, thank you. So, as I've already mentioned, the yakshas and the rakshasas, they came from this body, this body of ignorance that Brahma cast off, comprising of the 5 layers of Tamisra, under Tamisra, Tamas Moha, and Mahamoha. These are simply layers of the material body, because an appropriate dress, an appropriate garment is needed for a living entity to It's really disturbing me. Excuse me. Somebody is calling me again and again and again. I'm in class. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, I am in class. When I finish, I'll call you. I'm in class.
Okay, sorry, Maharaj.
Yeah. So the Yakshas, they said Brahma should be eaten, and the Rakshasas, they said Brahma should not be protected. They are born of the mode of ignorance, and they are generally man-eaters. So we have these things. They are still there till today, all over the world, different parts of the world. You find these people who are eager to eat the flesh of other human beings. So this is the grossest ignorance. The human life is so important. The human body is so important. What is the verse? It says, Durlabam manashodeha. Durlabam manashodeha. Deham Shanabangura. That the human form of life is so important. Durlabam is very difficult to get. And when it is obtained, one has the opportunity to meet the dear devotees of the Lord. Vaikuntha Priya Darshanaha. When you get this human form of life, when you get this human body, that's the opportunity to come in touch with the dear devotees of the Lord of Vaikuntha. And when one is able to meet the dear devotees of the Lord of Vaikuntha, his going back home is guaranteed. His liberation is guaranteed. So this body of the human form is so dear, is so special, is so important that one has to use it for getting out of this material world. But some living entities are so ignorant. They are so covered by this tamas, this ignorance, that they see it as food. So they want to destroy these human beings. They want to eat these human beings as food. When nature has provided a variety of eatables that one can nourish the body without necessarily destroying the body of other men. But these yakshas and rakshasas, they're so covered that they don't mind eating other human beings. They take great joy. They take great relish in eating other human forms. So it is a sign of their gross ignorance. One who is grossly ignorant will eat human beings. And when the grossness is reduced, then they want to eat animals. And when the grossness further is reduced, then they want to eat only vegetables and grains. So to come to the level of eating only grains and vegetables means that one is getting free from these 5 elements of ignorance, these 5 coverings of ignorance. So that should be understood. Until one comes to the level of goodness, one cannot give up destroying the bodies of animals and even other human beings. So we go to text 22. Somebody can read 22.
Translation.
Yeah.
He then created the chief demigod, which are shining with the glory of goodness. The drops before them were fulgent form of daylight, and the demigods certainly took possession of it.
Yes, right.
Demons were born from the creation of night, and the demigods were born from the creation of day. In other words, demons like the Yakshasas and the Rakshasas are born of the quality of ignorance, and demigods are born of quality of goodness.
Thank you. So, after Brahma threw off his body of ignorance, and as a result, the Yakshas and the Rakshasas were created. Brahma was freed from that ignorance, and therefore he could now create a higher caliber of beings. So the demons are born from the creation of night or ignorance terms, and the demigods were born from the creation of the day. So Yakshas and Rakshasas are born from the quality of ignorance, and demigods are born of the quality of goodness. So that is the difference. The difference between demigods and demons is that the demons were created from the element of ignorance or darkness, while the demigods were created in goodness or in light. So therefore, the demigods will behave differently from the demons. And so one who is developing the qualities of the demigods is on a progressive path to getting out of the universe. The one who is developing the qualities of a demon, it means he's getting more and more entangled because he's going deeper and deeper in the field of ignorance. So it has to be understood that demigods are created out of goodness, and the demons created out of ignorance. And of course, we human beings who are in between, we are created out of passion. So those who are passionate are within the middle part of the universe. Those who are ignorant are in the lower parts of the universe. And those who are in the mode of goodness are in the higher planetary system. So I created the different planetary systems for different categories of living entities based on association with the modes. So those who are born in the mode of goodness, they are the demigods, they live in a Swagalok, higher planetary system. Those who are created in passion, they live in Bhuvalok, in the middle planetary system. And those who are born out of the ignorance, they are assigned to Narakalok, the lower planetary systems. So according to the mode you associate with, you belong to a particular location in the universe. The one who is transcendental to these modes, who doesn't belong to this world, he goes back home, back to Godhead. That is why the Srimad Bhagavatam says, Harihi Nirguna Shakshat Purusha Prakrite Para. That the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is transcendental to the most of material nature. Purusha Prakrite Para. Prakrite Para means he is transcendental to the most of material nature. And in order to transcend the most of nature, then one must seriously worship that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tambajam nirguna bhavat. Tambajam nirguna bhavat. Anyone who is engaged in the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he will also attain to that transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can also rise above the three modes of material nature. So those who are free from the three modes, they don't belong to this world anymore. They are transcendental, and they will go to the transcendental world. Text 23. Somebody like to read 23?
Please, Maharaj.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead with your question.
Yes, the question is that we know that Kuvera is the treasurer of the demigod.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the line, the Kadasi book, Lord Kuvera is known as a yaksha.
Yeah.
So how does it happen that a demon becoming the treasurer of the demigods?
Well, Kuvera performed some very wonderful austerities.
Hare Krishna, Madhuva Prabhu. Radio mute. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Kuvera is a brother to Ravana. Kuvera is a brother to Ravana. Kuvera and Ravana have the same father, but different mothers. So it's a demon. That's a fact. But by his austerities, by his devotional service, he's promoted to be among the demigods. So that also shows us that no position is permanent. One may be a demigod today, then he becomes a demon tomorrow by his activities. And one may become a demon and become a demigod also by his activities. So Kuvera performed great austerities, great service. And as a result, he is, even though he's a leader of the yakshas, but he's counted among the demigods. And he's even made the finance minister of the demigods. Yeah, but it's described in the Ramayana that Kuvera he performed so much austerity, so much piety, that he was awarded with Lanka. Actually, his abode was Lanka. Lanka was a place of gold. And Kuvera, he had this Pushpaka, the magical airplane that traveled by the dictates of the mind. It doesn't require any fuel. It doesn't require anything. Just whatever you desire. When you sit in that Pushpaka, that plane, wherever you want to go, you just think about it, and it moves according to the desires of your mind. So Kuvera had all these things. And Ravan, influenced by his mother, attacked Kuvera, fought with him, and sacked him from Sri Lanka, the golden city. Kuvera's city was a golden city because of his austerities and different things he did. He was awarded those things. Ravana, when I fought with him under the influence of his mother and defeated Kuvera and sacked him from Lanka and occupied Sri Lanka and took away that Pushpaka, that airplane that traveled by mind. He took it away from Kuvera. So it has to be understood that Kuvera is, though a yaksha, but he had done something very special. He rendered some service, he performed some austerities, and the Lord was pleased with him, and he awarded him all these facilities. And that is how he became the the treasurer of the demigods, the finance minister of the demigods. Yeah. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Thank you very much, Prabhu, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. So we can move on to text 23. Somebody can read that.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
In response to the explanation you just made, that one can become a devotee or a demon by his activities.
Yeah.
I was just reflecting, Prahlad Maharaj was born by a demoniac father.
That's right. That's right. That's another example. That's another example. Thank you for that. That's another example. Prahlad Maharaj was born in a demonic family. The Hiranyakashipu is his father. Very, very terrible. Demigods were afraid of Hiranyakashipu. Just by the movement of his eyebrows, the demigods were in trouble. But out of that demonic family, Prahlad Maharaj has become a dear devotee of the Lord. So much so that when Vamana Dev came into the arena of Bali Maharaj, it is actually said that because of Prahlad Maharaj's devotional service, Vamana Dev remembered Prahlad Maharaj's devotional service, and he wanted to benedict his grandson. Virochana is the son of Prahlad Maharaj, and Bali Maharaj is the son of Virochana. So Bali Maharaj is the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. Now, because of that powerful devotional service Prahlad Maharaj performed, even generations after him benefited from his devotional service. So Bali Maharaj, Lord Vishnu, went to the sacrificial arena of Bali Maharaj just because Bali Maharaj is related to Prahlad Maharaj. And after Bali Maharaj was deprived of all his material assets, and the Lord created a planet for him, Sutala, and sent Bali Maharaj to Sutala Lok, and then he personally became the gatekeeper. He also sent Prahlad Maharaj to Sutala Lok. So it is sometimes said that even Prahlad Maharaj is with Bali Maharaj in Sutala Lok, where the Lord is the gatekeeper himself. He's at the gate. It is described that Ravana was looking for allies, and he knows that Bali Maharaj is a demon, so he wanted to go and court Bali Maharaj to support him in a fight against Ravana, Lord Ramachandra. So he was going to different places looking for allies to fight Ramachandra. So when he got to Sutala Lok, he did not recognize that Vamana Dev, a short Brahmana, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Ravana went to the gate, wanting to barge in, to force his way into the planet. And Vamana Dev threw Ravana miles away. He flung him like a piece of wood, and he landed miles and miles away. Then when he woke up, he realized that that personality, even though he's looking like a small boy, a Brahmana boy, he's the Supreme Lord. So he came back very humble and then begged him to allow him to see his friend Bali Maharaj. Only then did Vamana Dev allowed him in to see Bali Maharaj. But he could not convince Bali Maharaj to join him, because Bali Maharaj has already become a devotee. He's already serving the Lord, and the Lord is at his gate. So he couldn't. But the fact is, because of Prahlad Maharaj, because of his devotional service, even Virochana, his son, and Bali Maharaj, his grandson, they all benefited from the wonderful devotional service of Prahlad Maharaj. So it's a fact that even it is not where we are born in, but how we behave. A demon can be a pure devotee, and a devotee can become a demon depending on the behavior we put up. Thank you, Prabhu, for that contribution.
Yes, madam. Before we go further, please, I wanted to ask a question in relation to application of the subject we're discussing.
Okay.
It is said in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Brahmananda Brahmiti Konya Bhagavan Jiva, that when the divine entity comes in contact by dint of good fortune, in contact with the pure devotee, and like Prabhupada said, it becomes the son of the pure devotee by initiation, by accepting initiation. And because the living entity has, according to the scriptures, been living eternally in different conditional existence. So he has a barrage of karmic situation that he's been carrying. Life after life. So when he comes in contact with pure devotee of the Lord and is endeavoring in devotional service, how do we measure when such a devotee still meets with seemingly unfortunate situation? And give an example, a devotee becomes, it develops all of a sudden a terminal disease, or we see in life of Prabhupada, because he has a mission, he was consistently losing out in his business endeavor, even though he was a very potent, expert, and knowledgeable chemist. So when such things happens in the life of a devotee who is dedicatedly serving in devotional service, could we say it's as a result of karma in our conditional experience? Or could this be that devotee is not yet purified enough? Or could it be that Krishna is telling the devotee something significant to note? I'm talking in terms of our own practical life now. I've talked about the Lord and the devotee and the pure devotees, but in our own conditional life, how do we see, how do we observe, how do we know which of these cases is in our lives?
Well, as you already said, for the pure devotee, Krishna personally takes away whatever will be an obstacle on his way. Or Krishna personally subjects the devotee to some experiences. As we know the Bhagavatam verse, Yashyahami Anugrahanami Hariseta Danam Shanai. That when Krishna is very, very favorably disposed towards a devotee, he takes away his wealth, he takes away his assets, he takes away many things in order to make the devotee more and more surrendered to him. So in the case of Srila Prabhupada, that's exactly what happened. Prabhupada was very expert in his business as a pharmacist or druggist. He had such big plans, but Krishna's plan had to be followed because Prabhupada came to this world not to be a big businessman. He came to this world to be a big bhakta. So even though he had his plan how to make good money, make business, but that was not Krishna's plan. And we can see that actually Gur Mohande, father of Srila Prabhupada, he could understand the mission of Prabhupada. Everybody was suggesting that Prabhupada should go to London, he should go to UK and learn. But Gur Mohande stood his ground. He said, no, I don't want my son to get contaminated. If he goes to the Western world, he will get contaminated. So Gur Mohande refused. Even his wife, Prabhupada's mother, was in support that Prabhupada should go to London and learn and become a expert in law, expert in some other things. But Gur Mohande said no. He rather preferred to teach his son how to play mridanga, how to play karatals, how to organize festivals, Ratha Yatras, things like that. That's what Prabhupada's father was pushing him into. He was not at all interested in his learning, becoming very expert in education, expert in business. He was not into that. So Gur Mohande, he had the understanding of the mission of Srila Prabhupada. But Krishna wanted to use Srila Prabhupada's life as an example for us. So even though Prabhupada had all those plans and all those arrangements to become a very successful businessman, but Krishna's plan was different. And therefore, Krishna took away everything from him. And then that brought him to his knees. That brought him to the understanding that his mission is Krishna consciousness. And as soon as he took to that mission, then Prabhupada could see things clearly. So for a pure devotee, Krishna personally takes away his assets, his wealth, sometimes even his family members, to make him alone, to make him dependent on him. For us as sadhakas, it is difficult for us to say whether Krishna is taken away or is our karma.
That is the question.
It's difficult, but we can also, we can have a clue if we are taking guidance from the exalted Vaishnavas, if whatever we are doing is in line with the guidance from the exalted Vaishnavas, we can also say Krishna is directing us through those exalted Vaishnavas. So, and whatever karma we might have carried from our previous life, it can be nullified by the process of bhakti. And that's why Krishna is saying, Sarva Dharma Parityaja Mamekam Sharana Vrajam. That if you surrender unto me, I will relieve you of all sinful reactions. Sinful reactions, they come from karma, they come from sinful activities. But Krishna is promising in his last statements of the Bhagavad Gita that if we surrender unto him, he would take away those reactions and then give us a very peaceful life. So therefore, even if we carry the reactions of our previous lives, if those reactions are as tall as Mount Sumeru, they can still be nullified, counteracted, cleared by our surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead via the medium of the pure devotee of the Lord. So therefore, Krishna Das Kaviraj says, 3 things are necessary: Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Kripa, Bhakti Swabhava. That the devotee association is required, Krishna's mercy is required, and the very nature of bhakti is also important for our progress. So if we are working under the direction of the pure devotee, we can understand that Krishna is working through them to help us overcome our difficulties and eventually become surrendered souls. But if we are working without their guidance, we are doing things independently, then we can carry that burden on our heads, and it will be very difficult for us to actually get free from the reactions. So the point is taking shelter. That is the point I want to make. We have to take shelter. And that is why Guru is important. The pure devotee is important because he serves as a link between us and the Supreme Lord. So he can determine, he can tell whether whatever experiences we are going through is coming from Krishna or coming from our previous lives or whatsoever. He can tell because he has that ability to say that this is coming from Krishna and this is coming from us. So my answer would be, we need to surrender more and more to the orders of the spiritual master, we need to give more attention to the desires of the spiritual master. We have to channel all our activities for the pleasure of the spiritual master, and then whatever karma we are carrying, whatever baggage we are bringing from a previous life can be nullified by Krishna, because we are trying to serve him through the agency of his pure devotees.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. So we can proceed to text 23, because time is running out. So it says, Lord Brahma then gave birth to the demons from his buttocks, and they were very fond of sex. Because they were too lustful, they approached him for copulation. And the slide says that sex life is the background of material existence. Here also it is repeated that demons are very fond of sex life. The more one is freed from the desires for sex, the more he is promoted to a level of demigods. And the more one is inclined to enjoy sex, the more he is degraded to a level of demons. So the difference between demigods and demons. Demons by nature are envious of the devas. Every living entity is coming from one source, Kasyapa. Kasyapa is the father of all living beings. Kasyapa is the father of the demons, is the father of the demigods. Diti is the mother of the demons, and Aditi is the mother of the demigods. So, but in the beginning, Brahma created the demons from his buttocks. And when they were born, as soon as they took form, the first thing that came into their mind was to have sex with their own father, which is abominable. It's abominable that the children Brahma brought forth want to have sex with him. So we can see Brahma was in trouble from the beginning of the creation, because when he created the Yakshas and the Rakshasas, they wanted to eat him up. The Yaksha says, eat him. And the Rakshasa said, don't protect him. Now, Brahma has created the demons, and the demons, they are running after him for sex life. So it is not very easy to do something great. It's not easy at all. Brahma is trying to create a universe for the promotion of the living entity. And these very living entities are attacking him. Some want to eat him, some want to have sex with him, some want to do this, some want to do that. So it's not very easy at all. But he has to do that service on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in verse 24, the worship Brahma first laughed at their stupidity, but finding the shameless asuras close upon him, he grew indignant and ran in great haste out of fear. So sexually inclined demons have no respect for their father. The sexually inclined demons have no respect even for their father. And the best policy for a saintly father like Brahma is to leave such demonic sons. So, first Brahma was a bit surprised. So he laughed at their stupidity, but that did not stop them. Shamelessly, as soon as they ran after him, and when he saw they were close to him, he grew indignant and ran in great haste out of fear. He has to run for his life. So that is the situation Brahma finds himself in. He's trying to create a universe. He's trying to create living entities. And these living entities are after him. So in text 25, it says that he approached the personality of God who bestows all boons and who dispels the agony of his devotees. and of those who take shelter of his lotus feet. He manifested his innumerable transcendental forms for the satisfaction of his devotees. So the purport says, which is in the slide, there is no difference between Sita, Ram, and Lakshmi Narayan forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But nevertheless, the form of Ram and Sita has absorbed my affection and love. Therefore, I want to see the Lord in the forms of Ram and Sita. Similarly, the Gaudiya Vaishnava loves the forms of Radha and Krishna, and Krishna and Rukmini and Dwaraka. The words Bhaktanam Anurupatmam Patma Darshanam means that the Lord is always pleased to favor the devotee in a particular form in which the devotee wants to worship and render service unto him. So these demons that were born from the buttocks of Brahma, they attacked Brahma. They wanted to have sex with him. They run after him out of their lust. And what did Brahma do? Brahma had to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so here the Lord is described as Bhaktanam Anurupatma Darshanam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests himself in various forms just for the pleasure of his devotees. So when Brahma had that intense desire to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord became available to Brahma. The Lord is always pleased to favor a devotee in a particular form in which the devotee wants to worship and render service unto him. It is stated that as the waves in the sea cannot be counted, but appear and disappear continually, the incarnations and forms of the Lord are innumerable. A devotee is attached to a particular form, and it is that form he worships. Brahma therefore approached Kshirodakashaya Vishnu whenever there is some trouble or disturbances, and the Lord will always give him relief. So, because Kshirodakashaya Vishnu is not different from Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. And Garbhodakashaya Vishnu is not different from Mahavishnu. It is Mahavishnu who expands into Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and it is Garbhodakashaya Vishnu who expands into Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. They are one and the same. So when Brahma was in this difficulty, when he was attacked for sex by his demonic children, Lord Brahma had to take shelter of Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. And it is mentioned here that the Lord is always favorably inclined towards the devotee, and he will give relief to the devotee of whatever disturbances or troubles encountered by the devotee. So also, here in the purport is also mentioned Sita, Ram, Lakshmi, Narayan forms of the Supreme Lord. You see, different devotees worship different forms of the Lord. Like we hear the story of Mukunda Datta. Is it Mukunda Datta or what is his name? Yeah, Mukunda Datta is a brother of Vasudev Datta. Mukunda Datta was a Ram Bhakta. There's another devotee also, Murari Gupta. Murari Gupta also, he's also a Ram Bhakta. But the story is there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mukunda Datta, he was a classmate of Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya asked him to chant Hare Krishna. And he tried all night. He could not sleep because he tried to chant Hare Krishna instead of chanting the Ram mantra. And so the next day, when he came to Lord Chaitanya asked him, and he said, my dear Lord, I'm sorry, I could not chant Hare Krishna. I can't forget the chanting of Ram mantra. And Lord Chaitanya was so pleased. He said, that servant who is not ready to give up the service of his master is a genuine servant. Under any circumstance, one should not give up the service of his master. Then he also said that master who does not give up his servant under any circumstance is also a great master. So there are different devotees with different forms of the Lord they are attached to. And so is difficult for them to change. So each and every one of us, we are attracted to a particular form of the Lord. Some are attracted to Nrsimhadev, some are attracted to Gauranga Mahaprabhu, some are attracted to Nandan Krishna, some are attracted to Vasudeva Krishna. Different forms of the Lord are available, and different devotees are attracted to these forms. But whatever it is, the devotee relishes that form, the devotee loves that form, and the devotee wants to render service to that form. And so the Lord manifests himself according to the desire of the devotee. That is what is said here, Bhaktanam Anurupatma Darshanam. The Lord is always pleased to favor the devotee in the particular form in which the devotee wants to worship and renders service. Time is not waiting for us. I want to end up with 26. Lord Brahma approaching the Lord, addressed him thus, my Lord, please protect me from these sinful demons who were created by me under your order. They are infuriated by an appetite for sex and have come to attack me. So, in the purport, Prabhupada writes, it appears here that the homosexual appetite of males for each other is created in this episode of the creation of the demons by Brahma. In other words, the homosexual appetite of a man for another man is demonic and is not for any sane male in the ordinary course of life. So we have this to end with. It's already 10 o'clock, a class discussion. Homosexual appetite of a man for another man or lesbianism amongst women is demonic and is not for any sane person in the ordinary course of life. So the question is, should ISKCON as a spiritual organization accommodate homosexualism or not? So that is a discussion we have to end with for today's session. Should ISKCON, first of all, we have to accept that homosexual appetite of a man for another man or lesbianism amongst women is a demonic quality. It's a demonic character. That is a fact. We have to accept that. We have to admit that. There is no other reason for that. Now, as an organization, a spiritual organization, what is our stand? Should we accommodate homosexualism or we should not? What are your intakes? What are your takes for this question? Anybody can speak.
Let me start by being a typical soul born in Nigeria.
Okay. Yes.
So a typical Nigerian man will ask questions with questions.
That's right.
But sometimes it is said that to ask questions with questions sometimes is a sign of intelligence because you want to understand better the question.
That's right.
Yeah, so my question would be that in the first place, before we start talking about what ISKCON should be, I've read several pages on ISKCON official pages where we say that we do not condemn nor accommodate the act of homosexuality. But our scriptures clearly stated here that the act of homosexuality is demoniac. So why is it that this is what led to my question? So my question then is, why is it difficult for ISKCON to come out with an open statement that homosexuality is demoniac?
Yeah, that's a very important question. Maybe I would digress a little bit to come to the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, our Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Tita Maharaj, has been accused. Some of his god brothers accuse him that he was encouraging homosexuality because in his spiritual warrior 2, transforming lust into love, he mentioned that sex is sex. Whether it is heterosexual or homosexual, sex is sex. And the goal is to give up this tendency. Whether heterosexual or homosexual, once you are involved with sex, it means you are still entangled. So the effort, the program is to get out of it. So therefore, when he made that statement, people misconstrued it to mean that he's supporting homosexuality. But Gurudev said, his point is that whether one is a homosexual, whether one is a heterosexual, sex is sex. And so one has to get free from this sexual desire. One has to get free from it. And then also, Gurudev also mentioned somewhere that every conditioned soul needs mercy. So if we say that because they are homosexuals, we should not accept them in ISKCON. We should not allow them in ISKCON. Then how will they get liberated? How will they get out of this situation? That's another point Gurudev also made. And so they add this to that, and they start giving him name. But it is clear that Guru Maharaj is thinking that this mission of Lord Chaitanya is for the deliverance of every living entity. So therefore, if one is a homosexual, he should still be given a chance to practice Krishna consciousness, give up this demonic mentality, and go back home, back to Godhead. That was his point of. That does not mean he is encouraging homosexuality. Neither does he say homosexuals should have homosexual marriages in ISKCON, and they should be blessed by the devotees. No. Gurudev is saying that sex life is sex life, whether heterosexual or homosexual, is binding. And therefore, the important thing here is to get out of it. And second point is that whether we are homosexuals or heterosexuals, we are entangled by this sex life. And therefore, we need the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. We need the holy name to get out. So everybody should be given the chance to get out. If we begin to differentiate, this is heterosexual, this is homosexual, I only preach to heterosexuals, I won't preach to homosexuals, then it means we are not distributing Lord Chaitanya's mercy freely. So, but Gurudev does not indicate that he's supporting homosexuals, he's encouraging homosexuals, or he wants to approve of their activities or bless their activities. No. But as an agent of the Lord, he's just thinking of how he can be freed from this situation. So with this question, yes, we can accommodate them so that they can get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. But we should not encourage it. And as you said, actually, ISKCON leadership is supposed to make a very clear statement that, see, homosexual lesbianism is demonic. Our scripture says it's demonic. So we don't encourage any practice of it, of any form. But if somebody wants to come to us and utilize our techniques of spiritualism to free himself from this demonic qualities, he's most welcome. We are not against anybody who wants to take shelter of Krishna consciousness and end this demonic life. So yes, we need to come out and make a very clear statement that homosexuality is demonic and we don't entertain it. But if anybody wants to join us in order to give up these demonic tendencies, he is most welcome. Unfortunately, I have not seen, but I've heard that some of our gurus are giving blessings to homosexual marriages. And that is a very big issue. Yeah, if we give blessings to homosexual marriages, then we are deviating from this Bhagavatam principle. Yeah. I don't know. Have I answered your question?
You perfectly answered it, Prabhu. And my position is as same as yours, because I've had an international forum where, knowing fully well I'm coming from ISKCON, and some people have read about our official statement on krishna.com. So when they ask me, so what I say is exactly what you say, that the act of homosexuality is demonic. We know that. But just like we do not kill the sinner or the sin,
that's right,
we accommodate gay people in our organization, but in a loving, compassionate manner. We make them realize that this is an act of sinful activities. Just we tell a robber or a drunkard or any sinful person that this is sin, but that does not mean that we should throw them away. So we accommodate gay people, but with the mindset of loving compassion to help them to overcome that demonic tendencies. So I think your answer is perfectly okay with me. And then the two references you quote, which is from the Gurudev's book and his statement on the position of gay, were also my inspirations. So I'm happy that you actually reference those two, because that is the strength I have always relied on to understand it. Thank you so much. Maybe I'll give the room so I don't dominate other devotees. Make comments.
Anybody has a comment, make, otherwise the class has come to an end.
Yeah,
Hare Krishna.
In my point of view, just as you were saying, I think ISKCON, our main focus should be to draw the thin line between accommodating and encouraging.
Right.
We can accommodate, but we don't at all have to encourage. Yes. So that is my little contribution I would like to make.
Yeah, it's important. We should accommodate, we should help them to get out of this demonic qualities, but we should not encourage them. Yes, Prabhu, Madhavan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
From today's test, there are some basic things we are made to realize. That the appetite for homosexuality has been from time immemorial.
Yeah.
And also, even the appetite to eat people, these rakshasas.
Yeah, rakshasas, eating human beings. It has been there from the beginning of creation.
So we should realize that there could be some percentage in the populace
Yeah.
has this chemical problem. So it's a problem. And so that's the argument of the people who are talking of human rights. First, we have to acknowledge that percentage have this problem. Then, if they have to interact with them, it's just for the purpose of making them realize that the demonic tendency,
Yeah.
and it's not for a sane man, to have such. So if they are coming to us, then they are coming for transformation. But we need to realize that it's not fair. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Yes, we need to highlight the fact that these are demonic qualities, and one who has it, it means that is a practicing demon by doing these things, but they can get off them by practicing Krishna consciousness, by taking shelter of Krishna consciousness. So we can encourage everyone to come, take the holy name, chant the holy name, and get free from these bad demonic qualities. Yes. Thank you. Any other comment? Otherwise, we call it a day. We're already gone 30 minutes beyond time. So tomorrow at 8 o'clock, we would commence the discussion. Tomorrow we continue from text 27. I hope we can finish the chapter tomorrow, hopefully. So thank you very much for your association. Thank you for giving the chance to discuss these verses. Looking forward to tomorrow's program. Prabhupada ki.